Hey everyone, welcome to Princess Gay. I'm your host Connie, and today we are here with my blind reaction to Season 2, Episodes 12 and 13 of The Ghost and Molly McGee. So before we begin talking about this, there has been an announcement made. Apparently, the end of Season 2, the finale, is going to be airing in January. Now, we have 14 episodes that are currently confirmed, with 13 out. The 14th episode comes out like this weekend. So that means that there's going to be another break. There is going to be another short hiatus, mind you. Probably after this next episode, after episode 14. And the reason why I'm saying this is because there's not enough. There's more than enough time before the finale, before January. And it's not even like the first Saturday in January. I think it's the second. So it's like there's too much time there. And usually with a lot of these shows, episode titles are released ahead of time. And only up to episode 14 has been released. I don't know the episode titles, by the way. I'm just saying they've been released. So what I'm thinking is that after this next episode, there's going to be a short hiatus. I don't know exactly how long, but it's going to work to where there's going to be probably a number of episodes, then maybe another short break for the holidays. Just, like a week or two off. And then the final couple episodes after the holidays. That's what I'm thinking is going to happen. And the additional thing with this is that apparently Season 3 is not currently greenlit. Which is not that big a deal, but a lot of people are taking that to mean like the show is canceled or that the series is going to come to an end after Season 2. And I'm just like, there is no actual evidence to support this. It's just, it's like with the Ruby shit. It's like, oh, Volume 9 wasn't greenlit or when we wanted it to be, so we're just automatically assuming that means the series is over. It's like, bitch, you see all the shit they're putting out for Ruby lately? The series is nowhere near over. Well, okay, I can't say nowhere near, but it's not over. They're doing at least one more volume, more than likely two. It's like, just because it hasn't been greenlit when you're expecting it to, doesn't mean that it's not happening. There's a lot that goes into that shit. But the point is, there is no evidence of anything right now. And I feel like until we get any kind of confirmation from one of the creators, we shouldn't just assume. And that goes for any show. Not just Molly McGee, not just Ruby, any show. Unless one of the creators actually say something, then we have nothing to worry about. Or in Ruby's case, not necessarily one of the creators, but one of the showrunners, because, But right now, we have literally no reason to worry. We literally don't. And it might end up taking a little bit longer, and that's fine. We don't need a Season 3, right away. I know, Moon Girls Season 2 is starting in January as well, or February, I think, actually. Is starting at the beginning of next year. And that's like a year after Season 1 started, I believe. I believe Season 1 started in February of this year. So that's reasonable. There's still that coming. Just because you don't have confirmation of season 3 yet doesn't mean it's not happening. People are ridiculous and nowadays are just like so obsessed with instant gratification that they basically want seasons 3, 4, 5, and 6 all greenlit before season 2 even airs. And it's like, that's just not realistic. Just give it a chance. Wait. Be patient. And here's the thing. If season 2 does end up being the last season, as long as it closes off well, then I'll be satisfied with it. We'll have to see. But, again, there's no evidence to that right now. So we shouldn't just assume. Meanwhile, let's actually get into this. So, I'm excited to see what these 2 episodes have in store. I don't really know anything about them. Because luckily, there hasn't been too much spoiler issues with this one. I haven't been having to avoid a lot. So, thankfully, I can go into these blind. I'm excited to see what we got, though, because I love this show. So, let us get this going and find out. When the screen fades to black, pause this redirect and go to the description below. Follow the link to the reaction, and after you watch it, come back here to the redirect and resume play. Because after it fades to black and then fades back in, everything from that point forward will be my afterthoughts and will contain spoilers to the episode. So, that being said, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you at the reaction. Okay, and we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. And we have 4 segments to talk about here, so I got the list up just to remind myself of what each one is. So first off, we have The Ghost is Molly McGee. This one is basically a body swap episode, but unlike others, it's not really about learning a lesson. Like, when you see a body swap episode in a lot of shows or movies or whatnot, it's usually about learning to walk in each other's shoes. Usually about, like, oh, we misunderstand each other, so we're going to spend a day in each other's shoes to really understand where the other person is coming from, what they're going through, etc., etc. The Freaky Friday kind of thing. The problem is most of these are so bland and basic, they just repeat the same bullshit over and over, and it ends up being just really stupid. Like, it almost never works. And, like, a big example of this is Owl House. Owl House did this with an episode where Luz, King, and Ida all swapped bodies, and it was the worst episode of the show, without question. It was just so bad. And for Owl House, that's saying something, because Owl House episodes, even the worst of them, usually aren't bad. So that actually is saying something, that I consider that episode to be bad. But there's occasions where a body swap can work, and that's if it's done in a different way that makes it, like, not so much about learning how the other person lives and walking their shoes, but just making it more about the comedic situations that can come from this, as well as even learning different kinds of lessons, which this segment does. Molly and Scratch kind of learn different lessons about, you know, listening to what other people have to say. Through Molly having to act as the chairman, act as Scratch, she helps figure out about learning to hear what people say, to listen to them, through having to work with Bart. And Scratch learns this through having to work with Georgie. And by listening to others, they end up solving the problems that they're facing. Everything else is, I guess, going fine, even though Scratch's ideas are, you know, kind of scaring the kids working on the play. It's working, but not for the best reasons. But both of them have like their little problem child, so to say. Georgie is purposefully causing trouble on the set of the play, and Bart is not listening to any of the enhappifying positivity and, you know, all the stuff that Molly is offering as Scratch. So they have to learn to listen to them and hear them out and find out what they want. So Molly, as Scratch, listens to Bart and finds out that he actually just enjoys working and that he wants to get to work rather than have all this free time to do ridiculous, stupid stuff. So Molly promises that they'll focus on that. And so he agrees. It's like, okay, thank you. And maybe I'll take a little break once in a while to just enjoy things. And it all works out. It helps. And Scratch, inside Molly's body, listens to Georgie and finds out that Georgie just wants to have the lead role in the play. It's her dream. And so Scratch, again in Molly's body, tells Georgie, I'll talk to Libby about getting you that part as long as you finish the costuming in time. It's a compromise. It allows both sides to be happy. See, when you actually listen to people, you can help solve problems that they might have or that might be around them a lot easier. You actually have to listen and take part in their lives in a way. You can't just order them around or tell them what it should be. You have to hear them out too. It's a give and take. And see, that's a very different lesson for a body swap episode, because that doesn't really have anything to do with the body swap. And by relying on that, as well as just the general humor, it allows this episode to feel less like a stupid, contrived, ridiculous body swap episode that you get in everything, and more like something all its own. It's wild that a series that is less story focused, less intense in terms of the storytelling and the everything going on, is so much better at this kind of story than Owl House. Like, unquestionably, I would say Owl House is the better show overall. But this series nailed this kind of episode, while Owl House fumbled it big time. And it just goes to show that, like, even the best shows can have missteps. And this show is fantastic, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying this is a bad show, but even shows that just maybe aren't as good as the best ones can sometimes surprise you and come out with something better than what the best can do. There's a lot that goes into that. So, yeah. I really did like the segment. But segment B of episode 12 was an important one. All in the mind. So Scratch is carbonated. That's not supposed to happen. And so he's told by a doctor, a ghost doctor, that it's all psychosomatic. It's all in his head. He needs to figure out what's wrong and fix it. Molly helps him. They go into his mind to try and find out like what he's hiding, what could be like causing this. And most of the episode is just them running around trying to figure it out and dealing with this random business monkey that just happens to be in there. It's like most of it's just kind of silly stuff with Scratch hiding the truth. But there's these little hints thrown about as to where this is going, and it kind of shows that it's a follow-up to the Soda to Remember episode, because we see the soda that I think has only ever been mentioned in that specific episode. And so we soon quickly realize that it's because Scratch has been hiding and pushing back what he had remembered in that episode about his life before death. And so after some prompting and everything, he finally acknowledges it, and we get to see a little more than we did before. Even hints at what Scratch looked like when he was alive. And it's more clear than ever that, yeah, this was Scratch's best friend. Adia was Scratch's best friend. That they were as close as could be. But at one point, Adia moved away. And this is something that hurt Scratch, clearly. And whether he started to push it away before he died or after, the point is he pushed it away. He pushed it into the deepest recesses of his mind because he didn't want to think about it. He didn't want to remember that pain. And the thing, like we theorized last time, and I'm still sold on now, is that this seems to still be semi-current. Like, within the course of, like, it could be the 80s, but I don't think it's that much further back than that based on the visuals we see in the flashbacks. Meaning Scratch probably died young. And Adia is more than likely still alive. Meaning my theory, my guess is that we're going to be meeting Adia in the current day at some point, and Scratch specifically is going to reunite with her. And when that happens, like I'm convinced that's going to happen. For me, it's not an if, it's a when. When that happens, I'm probably going to cry. Because this has been so well set up. So just really exceptionally set up for a huge emotional payoff. And like, I'm more invested in this than anything with the Chens and their ghost hunting, than anything with the entire chairman situation with Scratch, or really any of that kind of stuff. Hell, I'm more invested in this than the entire Davenport's issue that's going on right now, which I'll talk about in a minute, and that's saying something, because that's, obviously, I'm very invested in that. But this is like, this feels like important to the overall story of the show. Like, this is going to explain why Scratch is so close to Molly. Like, why he connected with her. That's the kind of importance this is. This is going to be big once we get the full story. And I can't wait for that. I am all for that. Then we have episode 13. So let's talk about Carbon Zero Heroes. Because this is definitely my least favorite segment of the bunch today. It's not a bad segment exactly. Like, the writing is not bad. The character work is not bad exactly. Of course, Molly and Ollie would try to do this kind of thing. Of course they would. It's them. But I can't lie and say that it didn't bother me. Because it did. It very much did. And it's not even really the fault of the episode exactly. It's just it's a very naive mindset that too many people buy into. The thing is, even if Brighton like goes carbon neutral because of these changes they're putting in place, which by the way, the changes are not bad. They're completely fine. Hell, they're good. But are they going to actually do anything to stop climate change? No. Not a thing. In fact, they're practically pointless in that regard. Climate change is such a massive, massive issue that, like I said in my rant during the reaction, and again, it wasn't an angry rant or anything, but like I said, one person, one group of people, even an entire town of people, won't change anything. Even the entire United States, if somehow the entirety of the US went carbon neutral, which isn't going to happen, obviously, but if it did, it still wouldn't stop climate change. Because it's not just America. You would have to basically have the entire world go carbon neutral. And even then, there's a lot of other changes that would need to be made. With factories and power plants and capitalism in general, which is causing so much of these issues, it's like you really can't do much about it at this point. Again, it sounds defeatist. It sounds like I'm just like sticking to a very negative mindset and not allowing for any hope or idealism or whatnot, but I'm being real here. We can't do shit to stop this. We can slow it down, maybe, but not by a lot. Again, unless the entire world were to go like green like this, we're not actually going to do as much as you would hope. Because all of this is because of the entire world doing all of this to the environment over years and decades and whatnot. It's not just recent. It's not like this is like only been happening for a couple years. No. If it had been, then yeah, maybe we could leave a dent on it like this. But no, it's been happening for decades. Pretty much since the Industrial Revolution. Like that really is what cemented it. And that's not going to just be changed. It's too damaged at this point. Again, it's understandable that Ollie and Molly would do this. And again, doing stuff to try and help is not bad. It's good. Like a city installing wind turbines and stuff to cut down on electric power and things like that. It's like, yeah, that's great. Working to clean up like just the town in general, bike lanes, stuff like that is great. But you just shouldn't like have unreasonable hopes. Keep your hopes realistic here. And understand like that you can't do too much, but the amount that you can do is still helping to, even if it's just a tiny degree, it's still a good thing to do. Just don't believe that you're going to stop climate change with it, because you're not. Have reasonable expectations here. That's all I'm saying. So now we can talk about my favorite segment in this section. Which, while not as important as All in the Mind, and while the storyline is maybe not as investing to me overall, it's still really damn close. It's still probably my second most invested storyline that we're doing right now, for obvious reasons. Davenport's demise is not entirely what I expected when we were setting this up. When this was being set up and everything with Davenport's in demand, I expected that this other store would come into town, and there would be some kind of like, not really fight is the wrong word, but like a competitive spirit with Davenport's, to where it would be like unclear at first how this would go, but both companies would be doing their best to, succeed and like stop the other one. And in the end, I figured Davenport's would win, but instead we get very much the opposite of all of that. We have Bismarck come in and just completely put Davenport's out of business right away. And they don't even like set up in town. Like, the mayor stops that from happening. He makes it so that Bismarck can't build their store inside Brighton. So they just build it like literally directly outside of the city limits. And they advertise perfectly well to get everybody to come shop there, and Davenport strip goes out of business, which is insane to think about, because that obviously affects Andrea, even more than what we see here. It's like, because that means her family is no longer in money, and I'm going to be interested to see how that goes with them. Andrea's found a way to keep going, but her parents haven't necessarily. But after like they were put out of business, like I was expecting the episode to kind of go in a direction of like, oh, they would figure out a way to get back into business, to come back into play and all. But no, that didn't happen either. Instead, the episode took a turn to being about Andrea trying to find herself outside of the Davenport's brand, outside of her family's influence, basically. She doesn't know what to do, and she's losing followers because she built her entire brand on her family's brand. And now, what else does she have? So Molly tries to help her, but in the end, the thing that actually saves her social media and everything, that keeps her from continuing to lose followers, is honesty. All she has to do is be honest and acknowledge the issues going on. And people respond positively to that. And it's going to be different, and she's still going to lose followers, but it's going to allow her to move forward. And things are going to change for Andrea a lot. No longer having the money and the influence and everything, but we've seen how much she's changed as a character already. We've seen that she's kind of moved past a lot of that anyway. And while she had all of these plans for her future, she's just trying to, do the stuff that she loves and to embrace her identity as a social media influencer and as Andrea. This is who she's made herself into, and that's fine and that's respectable. And she had to figure out rebranding. She had to figure out changing things up. And now she's going to take a week off and come back to it refreshed and ready to go as just herself. Not putting on any big show, not trying to force popularity, but just being Andrea. This episode does wonders for her character that, again, she's already been going through. This isn't new developments, it's just adding on to the developments we've already had. We also find out that Andrea is queer in this. Whether she's a lesbian or bi or pan, we see that part of her dreams, part of her goals, is to marry this other girl who is another businesswoman connected to another company and all. She wanted to merge their companies. And obviously Davenport's going out of business scared her because she clearly has a genuine crush on this girl. She clearly likes her. And that's awesome. It feels so naturally put in, too. Like, you see at the one point when Andrea's talking about it, you see her blush and Molly makes, like, this, like, cute, knowing face at her. And it's like, Molly's just 100% behind this. Because of course she is. And it's like, it's just treated as normal. And as I've always said, it's like, that's what I want to see. Because that's the dream. That's what we should hope for the future. That queerness can be treated as just normal. And it's not even thought about. It's not even, like, thought about, like, oh, she's gay. That's cool. We shouldn't even have to think like that. The only reason we do is because it's not normalized now. Andrea is my favorite character. And this episode solidified it for me. And I still love Libby. Libby's still number 2. But Andrea is exactly my kind of character. You guys know how much I love this archetype, this trope of character. The rich, snobby, popular girl who turns her life around and becomes not just a friend of the main character, but a good person. Someone who genuinely turns their lives around and tries to better themselves. And I've probably mentioned it specifically before, but the reason I love this type of character so much is personal connection, because I am that type of character. Outside of the rich aspect, I wish. No, I don't actually wish, but, you know. I've talked about this before, but I was not the best person growing up. Because of the way I was raised, the things I was made to believe and everything, I was extremely bigoted, and I was not a good person towards so many. I did a lot of bad things. Whether it just be like stealing, mistreating people, or, of course, being a bigot. And I was able to turn my life around because other people were there to help me see the error of my ways. They called me out, and rightly so. And because of that, I was able to change, and I was able to better myself. And it wasn't instant. It was a gradual process that I had to work on, that I'm still working on. That I'm constantly working on. Because I can always be a better person than I was yesterday. It's always possible and always going to happen that I'm going to make mistakes. I'm going to mess up. I'm going to do or say something wrong and bad. Even if I don't mean it, it's going to happen. And so I just have to work to better myself, to make sure it doesn't continue to happen. To do my best to change. That's why I like these kind of characters. Why I like Amity from Owl House. Why she's my favorite character in that series. Why Pacifica's my favorite Gravity Falls character. Why Sasha is my favorite Amphibia character. Because this trope resonates with me. This character archetype resonates with me. Again, the rich aspect for a lot of these characters, I don't have that. I have never had that. In fact, I would say I am on the opposite side of that. I am quite poor, actually. And my family has, for the most part, always been at the very top, lower middle class. We have never been higher than that. So, other than that, though, it's like a lot of this I can relate to. And it not exactly perfectly, not for the same reasons every time, but it's a trope that I wish I had growing up. I wish I had that trope a lot more growing up, because it probably would have helped me turn my life around a lot sooner. I probably would have become a better person a lot quicker than I did. And it would have stopped me from hurting people. There are a lot of people that I have said and done things to that I can't take back. And so when I see characters like this, it inspires me to be better. And I know this is getting rather serious. I know this is like, haha, this is supposed to be a fun, goofy show. Supposed to be having fun with this, not getting, like, really emotional here and almost crying. But that's why whenever a show, especially in modern animation, has one of these characters, I gravitate so heavily towards them. Because I see myself in them. Both for the good and the bad. And I see what I could be in them as well. So, yeah. Andrea, I said earlier this season, could overtake Libby as my favorite character, and now she has. And I'm not surprised at all. Like, I obviously saw this coming. And I'm perfectly happy with it. I am always happy and in good with a character just attaching, or me attaching myself to a character this much. Because it shows that there's good character writing in this series that just makes me love the character. It attaches me to them in an important way. And that's only positive. And it's not like I'm gonna go like creepy and weird about it, no. But I can still be inspired and motivated to better myself because of it. And I think if a show can do that, especially one that's marketed towards children, then it's just a success. Just a straight success if it can do that. And yeah. And it's not even the queerness that made me that made Andrea my favorite here. It is literally because of her character work in this episode. Like, I've been through that about questioning my identity after a big change like that. Like, I had to change everything about who I am when I came out. Maybe not in terms of, like, interests and whatnot, but when I came out as trans, it's like, there was a lot that I had to work on with myself. There was a lot that I had to discover about myself. And I did. And I'm so happy I did, because I'm much happier with who I am now as Connie than I ever was prior. So I understand what it's like to have to change your entire identity after something big like that happens. And even outside of just that comparison, it's like, I've been through a lot of changes in my life that have had to cause me to change. My family moved around a lot. Those were big, that caused me to have to change to fit into new schools and with new friends and whatnot. Like, I went to like 4 different high schools. Think about that, 4. That should tell you how much of an issue I had with that. I'm just really excited to see where this takes her as a character. I'm really excited for Andrea's journey in this series more than almost anything else. Again, the only storyline I'm more invested in is Scratch's past, but only because of how directly important that is to the story of the series as a whole. But without question, the Andrea stuff is more personal to me. And this is why I also think that saying that there's not going to be a season 3 right now is way too premature. They're clearly setting up for a lot more that I don't think they have enough time in season 2 left to actually get to. So, just be patient, everyone. But yeah. I'm almost kind of in awe at this episode, at this segment, as to how much it just increased my love for Andrea as a character. And again, I love Libby still. Like, this didn't hurt my love for Libby at all. In fact, Libby in the short appearance she made in these episodes was great. Like, being a doomsday prepper and all is fucking hilarious. And of course Libby is. It just works. I still love the shit out of Libby, but Andrea overtook her. And again, I kind of figured that was going to happen. I'm not surprised because of the direction that was going in, and again, because of me already liking this kind of character. So it felt natural that this was going to happen at some point, and I knew it probably was, and I'm good with that because that's only a positive. Sorry for making these afterthoughts a bit serious here at the end, but I hope you understand why characters like this are so important to me. Why I gravitate towards them, and why especially because I'm autistic, let's be honest, why I get very attached to them. Let's put it that way. It's very personal, and I'm happy that so many shows nowadays are giving me characters like this, and I hope other people can find characters that just speak to them in the same way, that just resonate with them strongly and help them get through a lot of tough times. Whether it be Andrea, Libby, Molly herself, yeah, even Ollie. I hope that these characters just help people. And characters from other shows too. Like, I'm just... I'm just really happy that I discovered this series. And to anyone who says it's not as good as Amphibia or Owl House just because it's more episodic, it's like, I say this in the kindest, least aggressive way I possibly can, but screw off. This series is so impressive and has become important to me in a lot of the same ways that Owl House and Amphibia were. Sure, it's not as story driven, it's more episodic, but it's still delivering when it matters on the important messages and lessons, the important character work, and the very personally affecting plot points that just get me emotional. So tell me in the comments below, what did you think of these episodes of The Ghost and Molly McGee? Has this series or any other affected you like this? Like, just really spoke to you in an important way? And if you're comfortable with sharing, I'd love to hear your stories about that. I would love to hear how one of these shows or any other has just meant something super important to you in your life, has just spoken to you on such a personal, emotional level. If you're comfortable sharing that, I would love to hear that. And just always remember that no matter what it is, no matter what you might have gone through and how these shows might have helped, just remember that this channel, the Discord server, and any social media otherwise attached to this channel and to myself is a safe space. If you need to talk, if you need to vent, if you need to come and open up about something, just know that I And so many of us, so many of these viewers here, will be here for you. So, thank you. And this thank you goes out to everyone. Because without your viewership, especially those who have been here since the early days, like since the old channel and everything, without your viewership, I wouldn't have probably continued doing this. Like, I do this because I enjoy doing so, but, I mean, I want to have some views, you know? Without your viewership, I wouldn't have been able to continue doing this, and I might not have discovered some of the shows that I have that have meant so much to me. And I already know without some of you, there's a lot of shows that I probably wouldn't have continued, like Owl House and Amphibia, which were both continued due to donation rewards. After I had initially dropped them, like the idiot I am. So thank you to all of you. Your continued support, even if there's not many of you, means the world to me. For now, I'm Connie and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.